it is as if we are embarking on like the modern day a computer industry, like of the early '80s or mid '80s. Like that's what's coming down the pipe.
I've spent my whole career basically focused on youth culture. First, I was in it, and then as I continued to grow with it and past it, I was still always mindful of marketing to what has now become Gen Z and millennials. And then in passing, I heard our guest today mention that his company was the first anti-aging company. And I was just blown away by somebody who would come out and say it. So I want to, without further ado, bring out our guest today, who is the CEO of Caddis Eye Appliances, Tim Parr. So welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. And so what the hell? Why would anybody want to be the anti-aging company? I mean, we're all kind of obsessed, right, with the fountain of youth, not the fountain of age.
It's a long answer, but I think the short answer is it's not authentic to be anti-aging, because if you're aging, then you're the most authentic form of yourself that you can be. And in terms of building brands and authenticity and marketing, like I just feel that like you just can't BS things anymore. It's I think authenticity and clarity of mission and transparency, like those things are not going to go away, and thank God. So they're here to stay. And when you look at anti-aging creams and trying to reinstall youth, I mean, quite honestly, I don't want to go back a single day. So the whole thing seemed just backwards to me. So that's what got us on the and it wasn't installed in the very beginning. It actually came, I mean, we're only 3 years old, but it came later in the process of building the brand.
Well, tell me about the brand. What are Caddis Eye Appliances?
So it was based on the need. It's a typical entrepreneur moment when you need something. Exactly.
These are Caddis Eye Appliances, and we're wearing the same Caddis Eye Appliances. The brand new 12 bar is what we call this, right?
That's right. Named after the 12 bar blues. So it came out of need. So I was 45, 46 at the time, 47 maybe. I don't remember. And I needed reading glasses, but I didn't know I needed reading glasses. So I go to an optometry place down in Malibu, and they're like, yeah, they do a couple tests. They're like, yeah, you need, and I don't wear glasses. So this whole process was totally new to me. And, so I go, okay, so pick a frame, we'll drop in a lens, we'll ship them to you 10 days later. And of course, the stuff that I want is between $400 and $800. I kid you not. And I go, God, this doesn't feel right. I go, is that it? He's like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Or it was, or you can go to Walgreens or CVS and you get something off the rack for $9.95. So it was this huge chasm of $10 product, of going to Walgreens and putting something on my face, which, I've never done in my life, and it's so, to ask someone to go outside of their normal purchasing behavior in order to satisfy a need to a problem, like all the bells just started going off. Like, this doesn't feel natural. This doesn't feel right. And I can't be the only one that thinks this is completely screwed up.
What makes it unique as an eye appliance company? I mean, well, one of the first things is that you're calling it an eye appliance company. So tell me a little bit more about that.
If you change the language, you can change minds. It's like one of the things, if you keep on telling people readers, reading glasses, there's so much baggage with those words, preconceived notions about readers, reading glasses of, like just grandma $10 garbage, that when we were marketing them, we said, all right, let's just change the language. Like, let's not call them reading glasses, let's call them eye appliances. And it's stuck, and and, uh, and people use it.
Kind of riding the wave of the fountain of age, right?
Yeah.
I think you might have told me early on when we were getting to know each other that now you wouldn't market to anybody else other than 40 plus, 50 plus, right?
I mean, the stats that I hear or read about, not hear. There was an article in Barron's like 3 weeks ago about how where is it? So the over 50 is 1/3 of the total population of the United States and command 83% of household income.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there's one of the stats that's in the longevity economy was in 2015. I think he says that the total, if you count the downstream spend of people 50 and older in 2015, it was over $8 trillion, which was basically something like, what is the stat? It was like a huge percentage of the gross domestic product,
Right.
And so it's like this sleeping giant,
Totally. Barron's compared it in this article 2 or 3 weeks ago. They said it is as if we are embarking on like the modern day a computer industry, like of the early '80s or mid '80s. Like that's what's coming down the pipe.
Are there specific behaviors that demographic has that are the things that make it like so exciting and attractive for you?
Oh, it's interesting because you can look at it a couple ways. Like when you started off by saying you've always been marketing to this group, for the last 20 plus years, 30 years, something like that. I kind of came to that conclusion in a conversation just a couple weeks ago, that it's very difficult to do that today to the people that you were marketing to like 25 years ago, to be able to market to them today the same way that you did back then is very rare. I don't even know if it exists outside of our company, but I was in a meeting with someone and they asked that same question. Well, like, how do you know how to market? I'm like, I've been doing it for 30 years. Like, I know these people. and it's like, it's the same thing. So in some ways it's the same thing that we've always been doing. Like those of us that grew up consuming, Thrasher magazine and, really taking in that style of communication, and whether it be through music or sports or art, like there was just a way of doing things. And all we're doing is going back and saying, yeah, that stuff it still sets our belief system, and it sets, how we behave and respond to things. So it's not rocket science. Just keep on doing it the way that we've always did it. And then just do it to our friends. It's that's all it is.
My team is going to watch this and it's going to blow a lot of their minds because they're like, wait, really? They're going to be more older people than young people? We thought we ruled the earth.
Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, I'm in a meeting with a bunch of people from an investment group, and the woman who was leading the call from the investment group, I mean, I'm telling her the stats that you and I went over, and she goes, so older people are actually like buying stuff online from ads, and it was just a reminder to me of how this white space is. And there's a statistic it's either in that book or I pulled it from some data research, that people over the age of 50 is the leading demographic to purchase something from Instagram via an advertisement.
It's funny, you were reminding me as you said that of, last show I had Michael Smith, who's the new CMO of NPR.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, it's a good show. And he and we were talking, and I, hit him with what I thought was going to be this sort of insightful question at the, towards the end, where I'm like, how much do you have to, they're taking NPR in a direction, right, where they're moving away from linear radio content. I mean, they're not moving away from it. They're doing that, but they're also changing everything into podcasts that are video on demand, and essentially, like the rest of the entertainment economy, kind of just accessible anywhere, anytime, on any device. And so I was asking him about whether he felt that his team needed to kind of walk the walk in order to talk the talk. Like, did they need to be using TikTok and did they need to be using Snapchat and all of these technologies in order to do their jobs? Mm-hmm. And he just came back, and in one sentence, he's kind of like, it's a myth that like we don't already, like he's like, I don't know where that comes from. He's like, I've always used technology, and he's talking to me, and I'm the same way. Now we're entering a zone where like everybody's in the digital economy.
And they have the money.
At the very beginning of our talk, you said something that reminded me. You basically went straight to how thinking about the silver, I think it was, you didn't use these words, but thinking about the silver economy, if we want to call it about that, mm-hmm. was just kind of, or making products for people that allow them to continue being who they are as they get older, is just kind of the right thing to do. Right. And it's a very compelling argument. And what it reminded me of is I also work really hard at this company and in general on diversity and equity and inclusion, which is, by the way, something I note when I look at the faces that you've chosen across your campaigns. Mm-hmm. I think it's, really awesome how, you're just kind of featuring all sorts of people of all sorts of backgrounds. But when I work in that space, we generally we make the argument that it's the right thing to do. And then it's so great to also be able to follow with, and it's incredibly lucrative, and you'd be crazy not to do it. And not only is that true about marketing to the silver economy, it also reminds us that age is a part of inclusivity and equity.
So when I was raising money for this, like, it was amazing. I mean, I probably went through 50 people until I got a really influential one, and then it kind of dominoed from there. But it was a quintessential 50 no's to 1 yes journey that I was on. And I had one guy who was great. He says, it's not my thing. I mean, he was all of 30 years old or something, hundreds of millions of dollars from high tech down in the Valley. And he goes, I just want to let you know that you're going to have a tough time. And I go, Thanks. Well, why? Yeah. I go, why? Because he says, ageism. He goes, the fact that you are, whatever I was, 48, 50 years old at the time, he goes, that's like, people are going to view you different than if you were 25. And I did thank him. I go, dude, that is the most honest, awesome feedback that I've gotten to date. He says it's real.
And, it strikes me too that it's sticking to your guns in another way too, as they say. Because what happens in so many other companies, in pretty much the entire economy, is that at age 50 to 60, every company and every product stops marketing useful tools to people to do things and starts marketing beige, plastic, smooth things to either simply, keep you alive or at leisure, right? Like there's this stereotype that old people are either dying or they're recreating. Either way, we resent them. Right. And so we start making just a singular set of products for them that just remind them of how old they are. I mean, I think coming back to the question of like, why call it iAppliances? It feels to me like intuitively you did something, that is instead of reinforcing the idea of reading glasses that you're somehow deficient and you need help,
Mm-hmm.
um, you just simply put another tool in people's hand and called it something that sounds like what it is, which is you're going to keep innovating and keep making amazing shit,
Yeah.
so you need a new appliance.
Right. Right.
And so it's like you didn't change. Again, that's sticking to your guns and just saying, I know these people and I'm going to keep talking to the same way. I'm going to keep marketing to the same way because they're just as diverse and not monolithic
Mm-hmm.
as teenagers.
Mm-mm.
There's so much just practical business opportunity there too. As I started to
Totally.
think about it more, I was realizing that you were talking about this kind of massive segment of the over 50 economy, and they hold 80 some percent of the dollars,
Mm-hmm.
in our economy. Also, as people are getting older, they're putting behind them a lot of times their mortgages and their student debt, and they're getting to the place where they can spend money on stuff.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we know that birth rates are falling all over the
Mm-hmm.
world, and
Mm-hmm.
lifespans are increasing. And so it's just a simple fact that there is this, just massive, unaddressed community of people entering their 50s and 60s, and the companies like Caddis that are figuring out how to make a product that reinforces that they're still the same person and they still get to do what they want to do and they don't have to buy beige things. you know
Right.
Everybody that does that is going to make a shit ton of money.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's going back to your numbers. Here's another number that I find equally, or if not even more so, exciting. So you've defined what the like the scale, right? The scope of what we're talking about. Commanding 83% of household income, and they're a third of the whole population. Uh, when you look at consumer product goods, 7% of marketing dollars is directed towards that certain age. So when you start talking about marketing to them, it's quiet, and quiet equals cheap.
And also less saturated. I
That's
mean,
right.
that's the other thing. That was like, think of all the messages that I'm directing from Eisenberg right now at teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Just message, 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 message. And nobody's talking to older people. Like you have a wide open opportunity.
Right. So it's cost efficient, I should say.
A little bit too about how about your audience. One of the
Mm-hmm.
things that I love as I got to know Caddis is your connection to real people. I love those documentary shorts you were reminding me in your stories of surfing of Donovan Frankenreiter. Tell me a little bit about how that series came together and how it fits into your marketing strategy.
So Donovan's Donovan's a partner, so that's how that started. And I sat with him in back when we could travel the world. He lives in Honolulu, and we met at this coffee shop. And I'm telling him the whole story, and he looks at me and he goes, "I'm in." And he goes, "I just wanted to let you know that this is the first time in a long time that I can authentically like represent, what it is, that I'm going to be promoting." Because if you go back in his history, coming from professional surfing, it's all youth based, right? So, like, that's where Donovan started from, and he's been fantastic for us, and he's an amazing individual on so many different levels. Um, and then from there, it just kind of went. It grew organically. Lisa Anderson, four-time surfing world champion, she got on board, and herself has just been just an amazing flag waving, individual that has done a lot for us. And a lot of when we were back when we were doing trade shows, we'd have a big picture of Lisa, and she's just organic, natural beauty. I think she's 51 or 50. I can't remember. And yeah. and it's so awesome to see women respond to her image. Because I think the one that we even have, and it's like a massive wall thing. I'm not even sure she's wearing any makeup, and in all of her natural state, and women just respond to it like, thank you for, projecting out these images of real people.
The reason I asked was just, it's not just Lisa. The portraits of older people are so unusual to see. And by the way, if Mr. Cartoon is out there watching, obviously you know that you're not an older person. But
which, by the way, has my favorite quote.
They say you hear a big pop when you turn 50. That's your head coming out your ass. We'll see.
Yeah. It's a great quote, and frankly, each of the documentary pieces has a great quote. Right at the end, there's some sort of a juicy bite, and the other thing that's amazing is just like the quality of the still photography, which I think really captures each person's beauty when we're not used to looking at people who are getting older. We're constantly, again, being barraged with images of, people who are just starting their lives.
Yeah.
And then the documentaries also have this wonderfully subtle red thread that runs through them, which is basically the wisdom of all of these people, whether it's Mr. Cartoon or Lisa Cooper or Donovan Frankenreiter. They're dropping pearls, along the way while they're basically modeling your glasses.
You get stuck because you're holding on. You're holding on to so much stuff. You have so much luggage. You can't move. You gotta let it go.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that, because that's the goal. Back when I was working at Patagonia, and I spent a fair amount of time with Yvon Chouinard, like driving up and down the coast, doing various projects and whatnot. The subject came up of all of his climbing, and and we talked about who his target market is, and he knows that it's not just a bunch of hardcore people. It's everybody. Mm-hmm. And he told me, he goes, look, I've been at the top of all the major mountains. He goes, there's nothing up there. So if you start at the bottom an asshole and you get to the top, he goes, you're still an asshole. Totally. And it made me think of, like, okay, so like our glasses like aren't like, if you are on a certain trajectory in life, like the one that you've always been on, like these are going to just let you continue that trajectory, so they're not going to diminish you like the products that we're replacing. And they're not going to force you to do something that you don't want to do. They're just going to allow you to keep moving forward with everything that you are.
What path did you take to get to where you are today before the glasses came along?
Yeah, so not straight. I'll tell you that. So my first job was a company that I started. It was back in the cycling world. It was a company called Swobo. And we were credited with changing the way kind of bike fashion, or it was like loose fitting shorts instead of. We were the antidote to the black lycra short. And it was based on bike messengers and punk rock, and very much not type A athleticism. It was more of like celebrating the bicycle as a cultural iconic, like really cool thing. So that was like that was my first entry into life. And then after that, I went to go work at Patagonia. And at Patagonia, I was a general manager for part of their surf division, which was very interesting because at the time, Yvon Chouinard really wanted that part of his company to work. So I had marching orders to fix some stuff that was broken inside of the company in regards to part of their surf brand. So I got to work with him, which was probably one of the luckier things in my life. So then from there, started a brand strategy consultancy, which was great. Just helping other brands build stories and steer ships.
It's fascinating to me when I hear you say that I think I would have thought that you were kind of a bicycler, mountain biker, outdoors person, surfer, who sort of also happened to have the acumen to build businesses, but it was kind of parallel and accidental. But when I hear you talk about starting a business consultancy, you must have taken a turn in there where you became very conscious of, I'm also a business person.
On the strategy side, yes. Yeah, for sure. I just think, and it's funny you bring that up because I've never really thought of it. I just think I intrinsically breathe this stuff, and I feel like it runs through my bones. So I'm very comfortable with anyone talking about it, and discussing what might be and how that works within an organization. And so then after that, so that was the consultancy. And then I got it to a point where I didn't like being so removed from the trenches, because when you're an outside consultant. So I stopped doing that. And actually, I got back into Swobo. So they brought me back in to run that company again, which was the bike company. And then got out a few years later and learned how to play guitar and started a bluegrass band. So then toured the Western United States playing music, sleeping in vans and couches and doing that in my late 40s with a band that was primarily in their 20s. So that was quite the experience, to say the least. Yeah. And then I had this idea, and so I was thinking, it'd be great if I could, start this company while I'm on the road in a band, and that was a terrible idea. So we did trade shows before COVID, and we'll continue to go down that path and grow wholesale. We'll probably double the amount of wholesale doors when we can, in the next 6 to 12 months. Instagram and Facebook has been probably our strongest touch points for people. And then I have to say wholesale is another one. So people see us in a store, then they do some research. We get a tremendous amount of help from our target audience, tagging us saying, hey, look at blah, blah, blah. And it's everything from Gwyneth Paltrow to, Julianne Moore, Donovan, Katie Couric. There's, the list goes on and on and on of who's behind the brand, and who supports us. Everything from music to street art, to fashion, to thought leaders. So I feel if you have a strong message like we do, then you're going to rally people around the message. And with Instagram specifically, that's been probably one of our strongest tools.
There's this great metaphor that reminds me of in here in this book that you turned me on to, the Joseph Coughlin's The Longevity Economy. There's this great metaphor, I don't know if you remember, where he talks about how when you're making drills, it looks to you like your whole endeavor is about making drills, but actually it's about making holes. And you're only going to be viable making drills as long as there's not a better way, to make holes. And And eventually there will be, right? There'll be these like air impact, punch a hole. There'll probably be lasers that make holes, But so the bottom line is you can really get lost in thinking you're making drills when really what you're selling to the consumer is a hole.
Yeah.
That's what they need. And so I think about products like Caddis eye appliances in that category of you've really determined a very specific need that Julianne Moore and Donovan Frankenreiter and Lisa Anderson have. And it's not reading glasses. It's about, living a life that they've cultivated to an age where they're really on top of who they are, and continuing to be able to do that with these appliances for the eyes. And and that's the beauty of it is you've so squarely hit that hole that instantly all of us, go. This is This is it. This is such a great product. It's really cool.
I see Caddis as a platform, and I see the reading glasses as, the door prize to the amusement park, that analogy. And when we talk about what we're doing, the glasses are this absolutely needed medical product, for people. It affects 90% of people over the age of 40. So it's needed. We always say this isn't like coming out with another line of denim jeans that we're going to, now sell to 50-year-olds. Like, this is a product that people straight up need in order to function in their life. So check that box. And that's a need. But then there's like this, okay, well, why do we really matter? Like, what is so what is our whole, and you defined it really well when you said, it allows people to just continue to be the exact person that they were, throughout their life. And then, which is the core, right? So, the Caddis strategy is that we have the ability to affect these people, which communicate to these people, which then communicate to these people. And we always stay focused on this core. And when you look at what transcends outwards into the outer rings, is this whole concept of let's make aging cool. Like, that hasn't been done, and it hasn't been done in our culture. I mean, you could it has been done in Japan. And if you walk the streets of Paris, you see, very cool older people, there that they get it. But in American culture, the fictional, construct of age, like, needs this deconstruct of this generation that grew up with a certain point of view on fashion, music, board sports, in order to say, wait a second, this has been going on too long. It's like too much the establishment, like, let's break it. So that's where this, like, our whole is, well, let's make aging cool.
Yeah.
And I know cool is a terrible word, but I have a really hard time just coming up with something to replace it. So I just stick with it.
It works. You're leading us to the fountain of age. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.